Hi, this is Adam Swiderski with CBR here at New York Comic Con 2022, and I am here talking to the cast and creators of His Dark Materials on HBO. Very exciting time, season 3 on the horizon. What's the feeling going into wrapping up this epic story?
Grief. I think certainly Dan and myself, who've been working on it for so many years now, it feels very emotional. We had a very emotional final moment, didn't we, when Lord Asriel finally finished his gig on His Dark Materials. There were a few tears.
I feel like this whole show, everybody who came on loved the book so dearly, and if they didn't know the books already, they came to love them so dearly. And saying goodbye to playing these characters or being the custodians of telling their story as you guys are and building these worlds as you guys do, it's really, really sad. It's been a great privilege to play Lord Asriel, as I'm sure you would say about playing well, but it is sad to have to stop, sadly.
With that much love for the source material, it's interesting that this show, I think, has taken a significant number of changes from the source material. What's it like approaching that as fans and people who love Pullman's work, but knowing either through necessity or for creative reasons you have to make those changes? And does concern about fan reaction enter into that conversation?
Well, I think our first concern is Sir Philip Pullman's reaction to whatever changes we might make. And so that's where we always start before we make any deviation from the source material at all. And actually, we've had 2 rules that Philip set down for us. One was, well, don't mess about with the scenes that I've actually written. Don't make changes within the material that is there in the book. But what happens outside of that, in particular to Lord Asriel and in particular to Mrs. Coulter, because he touches descriptively that they're off stage doing various things, and our task is to dramatize those. And every step we made when we went outside that source material, we made with Philip. So we hope the fans will come with us, but we were very loyal to his vision and very loyal to the rules he set down for us.
For the actors, when you're approaching material that's not from the source versus material that's from the source, how does your approach differ in working with these characters?
I guess Jack Thorne and the scriptwriters have done a great job of adapting these books, and kind of just go with that really, and also put a bit of myself into it and what I can bring into the character. I think that's really, really important for me.
I think, as Jane just said, a lot of what Asriel and Coulter do specifically is sort of not in the book. It's hinted at and it's talked about and it's alluded to, but it's not necessarily narratively investigated. And so there was a bit of invention that had to be done, which is totally appropriate. But it always felt like when you were doing it, it had to be true to who the character is and the things we do know about the character and the things we do know that he's doing and the things that we do know that he means and stands for. And it was always, that conversation was always ongoing. Does this feel right? Does this feel like by adding this scene that the audience don't get to read about, that we are going to give the audience something meaningful and rewarding when they see it? When they didn't get to read it, now they're going to see it. Is it going to add? And that was always, I think, something that we were chasing down vociferously. But you just don't want to take away from those amazing books by adding something. And I don't really think we changed too much of what happens to Asriel or Coulter. We just added to. And hopefully that's something that audiences are only ever going to get. But I think when you're adapting a book, you always have this conversation. You always have this worry. There are going to be necessary changes because the medium that works so well in a book doesn't necessarily translate when it goes to a screen. So you're always going to need to change something. But I think the fans need to know that they've got people who care and who are fans themselves bringing this in a slightly changed way at times to the small screen.
The advantage that we had is that we were looking at 3 books, so we could journey from the very start to the very end, and that was constantly in our heads. Whenever we hit a roadblock or we stumbled upon a logic issue, we just went back to the books and just thought about what is it with the books? What are they telling us? Where do we want to take this with the books in mind?
When people used to talk about adapting this series, even back before the film, the war against heaven, the war against the authority, always was a bit of a live wire. People were wondering, oh, can you really do that? Or will audiences accept it? what's it been like diving into, I mean, this season fully goes into that battle. What's it been like dealing with that, and has there been any concern around, I guess, the sensitive nature of something like that?
Do you mean what was it like to physically bring it off, or do you mean thematically?
I guess thematically.
Thematically. So shall I do thematic? Okay. So, so what we did was we adapted the novels, and in The Amber Spyglass, Philip Pullman very clearly sets out that Azrael wages war on the authority. The authority is not the creator, i.e. the authority is not God. And Azrael brings the authority down, or attempts to bring the authority down. I'm not a spoiler. But that the authority is not the creator. So I think that some of the sensitivities that they are around Philip's books is partly because Philip is a bold writer, and Philip does have a lot to say about a authoritarian, oppressive, totalitarian kind of approach to rule. But he does not have a beef against God, and nor does Lord Asriel. Lord Asriel has a beef against the authority, and that distinction is very clearly there in the books. It can get a little messed up sometimes for people who haven't read the books, but we've adapted the books, and that is crystal clear.
Some of our best feedback has actually been from some religious newspapers in America who cite the idea that the danger, what these books warn us, is the danger of doctrine without spirit, basically, which I thought was one of the most profound things to say about our adaptation, something they really understood. And I think that's the difference between America now and America 20 years ago.
All right. His Dark Materials Season 3 premieres on HBO December 5th. Check that out, and be sure to check out more content from New York Comic Con 2022 on CBR.com.